Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for another webinar in the Food Industry Executive Webinar Series. We're super excited to have you all here today for the 2022 Global Food and Beverage Industry Trends Report, sponsored by Aptean. Aptean commissioned IDC to survey over 650 food and beverage professionals and write the white paper, Global Food and Beverage Industry Trends and Strategic Insights 2022. Today, Aptean's food and beverage expert, Jack Payne, will do a deep dive into the results and actionable insights and takeaways. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you have any questions at all, please drop them into the questions panel and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. We'll also be sending out the recording and slides following the broadcast. Now, without further ado, I'm thrilled to announce today's presenter, Jack. Jack, take it away. Sorry, Jack, it sounds like you're still muted here.
Hillary, thank you so much. I knew I needed to unmute myself. But greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us today as I review the results of our third annual Global Food and Beverage Industry Survey that we commissioned IDC to do on our behalf with us. I'll also be sharing some of the trends from the prior 2 years and show how things have either stayed the same or how they have changed since then. So now let's get into the today's presentation. Let me share this with you. From an agenda perspective today, the topics we're going to go through first is we will go through what I call the trends. So what are the external concerns that food and beverage companies are dealing with? What are the opportunities or trends that they're seeing in the food and beverage marketplace? And what priorities have companies determined to address these concerns and these opportunities? We'll also look at digital transformation, what impact it's having in food and beverage, and also where food and beverage companies are presently at in that digital transformation journey. One of the areas that's of concern, of opportunity, and a priority is sustainability, which is very important to food and beverage. We'll spend some time talking about sustainability. And then we'll also look from a technology perspective at one of the trends that's been occurring is cloud-based ERP solutions or cloud-based business systems to support food and beverage companies. And then we'll go into some key takeaways as well as some advice or guidance from our survey. We'll end up with a question and answer session that you can put in your questions through the chat feature. And also on this page will be a QR code that you can scan if you'd like to download a copy of the industry trends survey result. Over 650 respondents to the survey, and when I say respondents, companies responding. And from a breakdown in terms of what segment of the industry, 22% from processors, and that was defined as companies that are basically dealing with crops coming from the farm and processing those crops so they can be further used into making food. So thinking about somebody who's basically dealing with one input and one output at a time, whether it's a tomato, whether it's a vegetable, whether it's maybe a protein processor doing this. 48% or almost 50% were manufacturers. And so these are people that are basically taking the output of the processors and mixing, combining, baking, making foods that typically consumers would buy, either in stores or through food service establishments and now through e-commerce as well channel. And then 30% are coming from distributors, and those distributors being both for food service as well as for retail distributors with that. From a geographic standpoint, 50-50 almost between North America and EMEA. In North America, 42% of the total was United States, 11% in Canada. And as we move into EMEA across the 5 countries here from the United Kingdom, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, and Ireland. From a company size in terms of revenue, it was also broken down, I thought, very evenly with this. Food companies under 20 million in revenue accounted for 28%, getting close to a third of these. Mid-market, 20 to 100 million was another 27%. And as you start getting a little bit in that larger size of mid-market up to 250 million is 26%. So 50% of the companies between 20 million and 250 million, almost 30 below 20 million, and 19 or 20% above 250 million. Kind of matches the demographics in the food and beverage industry as we went through this. So let's go into the first area where we'll talk about the concerns, the opportunities, and the priorities. And one of the first questions that was asked to the respondents of the survey is, what is their level of concern on the following external pressures? And it was a rating of 1 to 5. And of course, they could answer more than one of these. So probably not a surprise, inflation was what's come up as number 1. Now, the survey was done in the July and August timeframe. So if you just think about what was going on and what's happening, we're getting the reports, and particularly in North America, about the inflation going on here. And so that was number 1. Number 2 is what was fueling that inflation was ongoing or future geopolitical conflict. Well, what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. And then number 3 was talent and labor shortages. And sure, just quick behind that was changing consumer expectations with this. So those were the top 3 concerns about what's happening in the world and how it's going to impact food and beverage industry and impact the specific companies responding to these. And I took a look back at the last 3 years, and kind of a big shift here, but not a big surprise, in that inflation was really not on the radar in the past 3 years. But what was on the radar was price and cost was on the radar, but primarily that was that big shift. Prior to then, it was more about global disruption, labor shortages, consumer demands, sustainability. So you can see there's been a big shift of what's been happening in Eastern Europe in terms of the concerns with this, pushing that inflation up to the top. The next area we asked was, well, in addition to these external concerns that you have, what do you think is going to impact the industry? And I kind of refer to this as trends. What trends are going to impact the industry over the next 5 years? And of course, this was influenced with what's coming from the concerns about inflation in terms of higher operating costs, our cost of goods sold, and raising prices. And number 4 was the pressure to cut costs and lower prices with this. Now, in this particular question, this was not a scale of 1 to 5, but it was like, do you think this is impact, yes or no? And you could answer multiple of those. So 37% of the people said the higher cost and raising prices was a concern, 34% sustainability, and then cutting cost or pressure to cut cost and lower prices with this. So this was about 10 different areas that could be chosen from. And when we look at the trends from the past year, except for the higher cost, it was stayed pretty consistent. Consumer demands has been a trend in the past. It was typically the top trend in the prior 2 years. It now fell down to number 2 in meeting those consumer demands. Sustainability fell down to number 3 this year as compared with the top 2. So the higher cost picked up from like 4 up to number 1, but then other than that, it stayed pretty much consistent. So Hillary, we have a poll question. And what we'd like to ask each of you attending, if you could respond to this question in terms of, what do you think your organization is going to be prioritizing over the next year? And we've included 5 of the choices that we've given our respondents. Is sustainability and reducing waste, which is a major component of achieving sustainability, a priority that you have. Ongoing food safety and traceability, do you see that as a priority? Employee health and safety, that has been a concern that particularly has come up during the pandemic. Our food regulations and legislations that are coming out with more stringent traceability, food safety requirements, or labor shortages. So if you haven't already responded, if you could, please respond and give us your thoughts of what your organization is doing to prioritize your trends.
All right, so it looks like many of you have voted. If you have not, going to give it a few more seconds here. All right, I see a few last-minute votes coming through. I'm going to go ahead and close this here. And Jack, it does look like sustainability and waste reduction was the most common answer here.
That's quite interesting, Hillary. So that's quite interesting, Hillary. As I share our results of the survey, I think we're going to see that is a match. So the number one area of prioritization that we heard back was sustainability. Number 2, which I think is one of the keys of how you achieve sustainability, is improving efficiency of your materials and reducing waste. And then food safety came in at number 3 with this. Now, what I thought was quite interesting is if I go down to number 6, labor shortages, worker availability, and labor issues, was one of those top areas in terms of a concern. But in terms of prioritizing for the next year, it didn't quite reach into that top 3. And then how does this compare with prior years? And actually compares fairly consistently. Sustainability has been the number one priority that we've seen over the last 3 years. Achieving it by, efficiency and waste reduction came in higher this year because I think a lot of that's being fueled by the increased cost and the pressure to reduce prices. Food safety, food regulation, again, has top contenders over those years. So then the next thing I thought about as I was going through this is, well, how do you balance the concerns that you have about what's happening externally, what's going to impact the industry over the next 5 years, and what are your priorities over the next short term year or 2 with this? And I tried to pull those together and look at them side by side because it's the same topic in some of those, and I tried to use some kind of color coding to kind of help me see this or view this. And so when I look at concerns and trends, inflation, higher cost is number 1 in both of those. It's interesting though, sustainability has moved down a few notches to number 5 in concerns, still in the top 3 with trends, but it is number 1 in priority. But right below that is the efficiency and waste reduction in priority, which I think falls in line with inflation concern and the pressure to reduce prices and higher costs from the trend. So I think that makes sense from that. But again, the one I mentioned earlier that just to me doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, or maybe our priorities maybe haven't caught up yet with some of those concerns, are labor shortages. It's listed down several in our priorities, but still a pretty big concern with this. The next area that we talked about was Okay, you told us what your priorities are, but of all the challenges that you're facing and gaps that you have in your business, which gaps do you think are going to be the most problematic for you if those gaps are not addressed? Again, not a lot of surprises here. You know, we've been talking about supply chain for the last 3 years. I understand that Webster's dictionary has now added supply chain onto into their dictionary. You know, this was those people outside of the industry. Most people did not know what supply chain was 3 years ago, but now it's a household word and has been included in the dictionary. But supply chain visibility, lack of flexibility, having adaptability is one of those gaps that people see they need to address. Labor shortages. I just think maybe we haven't made the steps or the plans of how to address those yet, but we see that as a gap that needs to be addressed. And then also, the next one I see is technology, using technology, digital competencies to transform and to address the supply chain issues. So again, you know, this is a solution to a problem, but people are seeing this as something that's very important that they need to take action on to be able to address these trends with this. So now let's talk about our next topic, digital transformation, and what's happening in the industry with digital transformation. And again, you know, if we talk about digital transformation, it's really a business transformation, and it's really a journey. It's not just something that you wake up one day and you've gone through that or you've reached that destination. It is a journey. That's how you move to that. And one of the areas that we like to look at is where is each company on that path to digital transformation with their journey. 2 years ago, we had 10% of the companies said they had not joined that journey or were not planning on joining that journey. And in the last 24 months, that number has gone from 10%, a little more than 10%, down to about 1%. They had either not started or not planned to. Quite a large number of people are actually in process, are gathering data, or they've completed it. About 80% of the companies have done that. So I think we're seeing, you know, good progress. If we compare this to last year's survey results, where 10% of the companies have said they're beginning that digital transformation process, in the last year that's increased from 10% to 17%. So quite a big improvement, and also in process of digital transformation, going from a third of the companies at 32% to almost 40% of the companies have said they're in progress of that digital transformation. So if you think about people making a journey and their progress in the journey, you know, this is definite progress that we can see in the journey with this. And then over 40% of the companies are saying, you know, they're gathering data, they're using information for analytics and business insight, and it's making impact and making an effect in their business, or either they have completed that journey, they've reached the destination. But in my opinion, the digital transformation process is a continuous improvement project where, yes, you will reach certain milestones, you will reach certain goals and certain improvements. But I think it's one of those things that there's always additional room for improvement, additional places or journeys that you can take into the future once you've made that first major journey that we have here. So now it's time for our second poll question, and it'll be our last poll question of the day. And we appreciate your response on the prior one. Is as your company is thinking about digital transformation, or as your company is in that digital transformation journey, what are the barriers that you're seeing in that journey? Is it a lack of talent and skills within the organization, or acquiring those externally to help you out? Is it limited visibility across operations to be able to utilize digital transformation? Is it lack of resources, lack of money, lack of budget to do this? Is it lack of awareness of available solutions to help with this? Or is the business just resistant to change because this is a change to the business? So I'll let you go ahead and, you know, if you haven't responded, think about those and provide your responses to what you see as your biggest barriers, and we'll share those results with you, and then we'll share what our respondents had to say as well.
All right, thanks, Jack. I see a lot of you have voted already. Keep it open for about 15 more seconds, so make sure to contribute here.
This is kind of where we need that little music, that little countdown clock as it's counting down. Yes.
All right. This has been a fun one to watch come in. It's been kind of all over the board, but it does look like we have a clear winner, Jack. It appears that lack of resources and budget comes in at number 1, followed by limited visibility across operations and lack of awareness of available solutions.
Okay, everyone, thanks for sharing that with us, and Hillary, thanks for providing those results. Those came in as number 2 and number 3 from the people responding. What came in as number 1 was labor shortage, lack of talent and lack of skills. But close behind that was limited visibility, lack of resources, lack of budget with this. Now, these 6 choices, all of these are valid choices and key choices, but what we have seen is kind of a turnover, so to speak, from our survey in 2021. And if we compare that in the lighter color blue is the 2022 results, the darker color blue is the 2021 results with this. And what was interesting in 2021, lack of talent skills was number 6. That has made significant change or progress from number 6 to number 1 in the last year. And then lack of awareness of solutions and business resistant from change were number 2 and number 3 last year, and those have been pushed down to number 5 and number 6. The rest of the items are not too much difference. And from the previous years, maybe just 1 or 2 little changes with that. But kind of upside down. I'm interested to see as we do our 4th annual survey next year is what progress companies have made in their digital transformation journey, and if the barriers are still going to be the same as this. And I've seen information that says a typical digital transformation journey is a 2 to 3 year journey. It's a project that's going to affect a lot of people because you are changing the business and using technology to do this. I have a company I've worked with for quite a number of years. It's in the food and beverage industry. And about 2 years ago, they told me that they had been on their digital transformation journey for over 8 years. And when they started the journey, they did not know it was a digital transformation. In fact, the term probably hadn't been coined, but once they understood what it was, they were very happy that they'd been on this journey because of all the success and everything they had been achieving. So I think, they have that mentality. It is a continuing, ongoing, continuous improvement project, and they're seeing results along the way of that particular journey with that. And then just to show you from last year, what was number 1, number 4, and number 5 from that. So why do we do digital transformation? Why do we join that journey? And it's not just to, adopt technology. It's not just about acquiring data without writing it down. It's really more about how it can impact the business and the results to the companies with that. And so same thing that we asked last year is what areas of the business seem to be impacted the most. And so when you look at this chart, the greenish color number, our companies have said during this journey, we've seen improvements in these areas, and we expect to continue to see additional improvements in these areas. So those are probably people in that 3rd quadrant that haven't really reached that destination. And then the darker bluish green color, our company said they have seen improvements and they don't think they're going to get any additional improvements with this. So they're probably toward that end of the journey. And then the one in the orange color are companies that say they really haven't seen improvements yet they expect to. So these are probably people just starting their journey with that. And this is sorted by people that are expecting to see more and more improvements with this. But when we look at that in ranking, and again, if you look at this in total, people are saying 75 to 80% of the companies have already seen improvements. And a number of those, more than half of those, are expecting to see more improvements. But the areas where they're seeing improvements is in production, in overall equipment effectiveness, which is basically, improving your efficiency, reducing your waste with this, having more throughput, clean in place improvements through production, logistics efficiency, supply chain, shipping and accuracy and cost, and supply chain as well in terms of forecasting and reducing supply shortages with this. So lots of areas in the business that we improve those business processes that we have with this, but also along with that are financial results, financial benefits. We're going to share some more of that with you a little bit later when we talk about cloud ERP and some of the benefits that go along with that, which basically are very similar to those kind of financial benefits from digital transformation. So let's talk about one of those key areas that companies are prioritizing, and what we've seen is number one over the top 3 years is sustainability. And I think sustainability has more fuel under it because of the inflation that's occurring, and also the pressure to not only hold price, but reduce price when you can in this time of increasing cost with this. And so some of the questions that we had in the past in terms of gaps to be problematic, but basically in terms of mitigating your business risk, what's your focus on? Again, this kind of goes along with the priorities. Again, not a big surprise. Sustainability came in as clear as number one with this. Food safety, traceability, behind this, and overall supply chain visibility. All three key areas of business risk mitigation. But we want to take a little bit more and dig deeper into the sustainability topic, since that is so high with this. And so, what are the factors motivating companies for sustainability? And you've probably, caught on from now already. I always like to look at the top three. Those are the ones people tend to focus on and take care of those three, and then you take care of the ones below that. This one actually had number three was a tie for number 3 and 4. So that's why we're looking at 4. So why are companies, what's motivating them for sustainability? Consumer demands. And those are the trends that we've seen in the past 3 years. Consumer demands and sustainability being number 1 and 2. So these consumer demands for eco-friendly products offerings are driving this. A competitive advantage in the marketplace. How do you have a competitive advantage? Part of it is the sustainability you have in your products. Part of it is the offering of the product and also the cost. And this gets down to what tied for number 3, improving financial performance. A big part of achieving sustainability is reducing waste in the food and beverage supply chain. With this waste in terms of your materials, but also waste in terms of the resources to produce the product, such as energy expenditures with this. And then also complying with current regulations. Sustainability is a factor that's helping companies comply with these regulations with this. So what are companies doing to try to achieve sustainability? And I've already mentioned, reducing waste and spoilage across the supply chain. And we've done some webcasts in the past. We've done some studies, and what is pretty much everybody is consistent with saying, from farm to fork, at least a third of the food in the supply chain is wasted. North America, that could be as high as 40%, but let's just say a third of that is wasted throughout the world. Now, half of that waste is really coming from consumers. from the time that we get it either at home or we get it in our restaurants or we get it wherever we're at, that about half of that 30% or 33 or say 17 to 20% of the food is wasted consumers. The other half of that is wasted from the farm, the processor, the manufacturer, and the distributor. And probably the majority of that is really in the processing and the manufacturing, probably more of that coming from manufacturing. So anything that we can do to reduce that waste and spoilage is going to help us be more sustainable. And it's also going to help us with our cost and help us reduce our cost. And when I first started thinking about sustainability a number of years ago, my first thought went into recyclable and repurposed packaging. But then I quickly found out that it's just a component of sustainability. A lot of it is about the ingredients that go into the products we're producing, as well as not having waste in what we produce with this. But this is also a big component. Had a company that worked with a couple of years ago, and they were packaging fresh products, produce, vegetables. And as they looked at their material cost, they were spending 50% of their materials on packaging, and 50% of their cost was going on the product that they were packaging. And their packaging was not recyclable packaging. They basically re-engineered their packaging, use sustainable packaging, reduce that cost of the packaging, as well as improving the environment for that. But also product traceability. As we trace the product from farm to fork, we're going to be more aware of where we're having waste, where we're having spoilage within the supply chain with this. And this is part of the FDA's blueprint for a smarter food safety, is to have that traceability from farm to fork as we go through the process with this. So these are the top areas. We also see things like reducing packaging, reducing energy, water consumption, and some other metrics in terms of this 30 to 40% of the food that's wasted, that we waste about 20% of the water, we waste about 20% of the fertilizer and other things to grow the food that becomes wasted. And also the wasted food is a large burden on the to go into the to the waste and to dispose of with that. So a lot of ways that we can make more sustainable, we can reduce cost by reducing the waste with this. So now let's talk about ERP and how cloud is affecting this and some of the benefits that we are seeing with cloud. And just like we're seeing a journey in digital transformation, we're seeing a similar journey, or maybe it's a transition in companies going from on-premise to cloud-based ERP. Now, on-premise ERP systems have been around, 30 plus years. I've been working with ERP for that period of time. And, prior to ERP systems, there were time-sharing systems where people did not have computers. And, this started happening in the 80s, and then we started seeing that transition. And so we're seeing a transition now from on-premise into moving to the cloud. And this is the first year that there's been any survey results where less than 50% of the companies say they have no plans to move to the cloud. That tells me that more than 50% of the companies have cloud-based ERP is something they're thinking about for the future. And when we look at that transition that's occurred from last year to this year, companies that have moved to the cloud, that has more than doubled. It was less than 10% last year. That's now doubled to almost 16%. And companies that are in the process of moving to the cloud has also gone up 1.5 times, or up to 15% as well. So in that transition, a lot of times as you move to the cloud, it may be a replacement of your ERP system. It may be an upgrade of your ERP system. So it may be a 6-month to an 18-month process to make that move, depending upon what you're doing, maybe some business reengineering with it. So, over 30% of the companies are in the process, or they have moved to the cloud. I expect next year we'll see more companies that are now in the cloud. The only area that did come down were companies that are investigating it, and I think that's because the companies last year that were investigating it have now either in the process of moving to the cloud or they have moved to the cloud. But just a little better than 50% of the companies have made that decision that they are interested in and they're thinking about moving to the cloud at some time in the future for them. Now, companies that have moved to the cloud, what has happened in terms of financial performance with this? In terms of revenue, a lot of companies have had revenue improvements over the last 3 years because of what's happening with demand, with all the different challenges. It's also with the rising prices, revenue. But if we look at trying to compare on-premise to cloud, more than 2x increase in revenue or 2x more for cloud-based ERP companies and 2x profit with this. So there is some good, financial performance that goes along with moving to the cloud, how you improve the business, and as a result, you typically see on the financial reports bottom line from this. And then just like we look from digital transformation, what areas of the business have seen improvement from business processes in terms of moving to the cloud? And this chart's a little bit different chart with this. Again, this is based upon percentages. The dark blue company is some survey results that IDC had done across manufacturers of all types of manufacturers. And then the lighter bluish green is in terms of food and beverage companies that we saw in the demographics of what we talked about earlier. So in food and beverage, overall supply chain visibility, improving that. That's the first thing you have to achieve to improve your supply chain is having that visibility and being agile. Improved data sharing and collaboration. Again, this is one of the key components of digital transformation, but also doing this in the cloud is having the visibility of having better information to make better business decisions with this. And the ability to scale up or scale down their supply chain. And the ability to scale up IT needs. There is a lot of acquisitions that occur in food and beverage. There are acquisitions of product lines, acquisitions of other companies. And one of the things that a cloud-based ERP solution can do is help a company scale very easily with this and help them scale with their supply chain. But also the fourth one I've got listed here as well, because again, it's a tie for the next two. For number 3 is improved compliance and risk mitigation. Again, traceability, food safety is always key areas, key requirements in the food and beverage industry. And what this shows is that cloud-based ERP solutions as well as digital transformation does provide that capability for improved compliance and risk mitigation throughout the business with this. Other things that come into play in terms of business continuity, security, better features, better functionality with this. Almost very, very small numbers said they saw no benefits, but we're looking here at 97% of the companies have said they've seen benefits, and these were the areas of benefits that they've seen by moving their business systems, moving their ERP systems from on-premise into a cloud-based environment with this. So as we start moving to our wrap-up session with this on our guidance, we will talk about takeaways and then recommendations that we have with this. And so summarizing our takeaways from this, what's the 5-year focus in food and beverage? Inflation is definitely one of those key focuses, key concerns. Economic uncertainty across the industry that we have with this. It's number 1 in North America within the respondents from EMEA. It's top concern, not quite number 1 with this, but it is a key concern. Also, supply chain resiliency is a gap that needs to be addressed for long-term success. And we need digital tools and we need talent to help address those gaps with this from our focus. Priorities, sustainability. That has been a priority for at least the last 3 years that we've been doing this. It was probably a priority prior to our surveys we're doing. And that sustainability is driven by, customer demands, customer influence, and financial performance. Sustainability The way to achieve this is reducing waste, reducing cost, which leads to improved financial performance. It's just smart business, so to speak, with this. Digital transformation. About 75% of the companies have seen results from this, and another 40 to 50% expect to see more results over the next 12 months. So again, across all areas of the business, and I didn't share with you some of the financial performance numbers from companies that have gone through the digital transformation, but these numbers are very similar to what we saw from the cloud base. The barriers, for digital transformation, talent and skills. And so, what we're saying here is, labor shortage. This is just not on the factory floor, but it's labor shortage throughout the complete food and beverage supply chain, from the factory floor to the boardroom. I think we're seeing, turnover. We're seeing that labor shortage, those labor challenges with that. And it's something that increased. It was like number 6 last year. For digital transformation has gone up to number 1 as a barrier to achieving that digital transformation. And then the last one being cloud ERP. We think the most important is having a ERP system that meets your business needs. And that's part of the digital transformation journey, is to, the starting point of preparing for it is to assess your business systems. Can you, with your business systems, achieve the results that you need through digital transformation? Do you need to upgrade or do you need to replace them? But now we see that cloud ERP is taking hold. More than 50% of the companies are looking to move to cloud, and the companies that have seen improvements in revenue and in profit. So recommended actions go along with that. We think digital transformation should aggressively push that, and join. If you're not already on the journey, join that journey. If you're on the journey, what are things that you can continue to do to achieve those results and financial performance with that? I kind of mentioned this on the previous one, but just assess your current ERP system. You don't have to be in the cloud, but what we've seen is that cloud-based does provide and drive better business performance. Skills and labor issues. While we see that as a concern and an impact, it hasn't reached yet as high enough on what's being prioritized. But there are a number of ways to address that. Automation is one of those areas. That is a form of technology from automation with that. Another part that we haven't talked about with this is an environment where employees, want to work. And this is, once you have an employee, you want to retain that employee. We've seen a lot of employees, leaving and going somewhere else in the past 2 years with this. So how can we retain those employees that we have, which is going to help us all be successful? And then traceability and sustainability are coming fast. Sustainability, they're both here. Most of you working on sustainability. Traceability has been something that's been, for the 25 plus years I've been working in food and beverage, it's always been a topic. And I think we've gotten the basic traceability correct. There are regulations that are required, but also, we're looking to improve that traceability to get that farm to fork traceability across the supply chain with this. So I appreciate each of you spending time with me today, and I'm going to open it up for Hillary to go to our question and answer session. But if you would like to download a free copy of the Global Food and Beverage Industry Trends and Strategic Insights white paper, you can scan the QR code that we're showing here, and you can from that you can download your copy.
All right, thank you so much, Jack. We do have a few questions for you here. First one is, knowing the top priority is sustainability, how does technology help with this besides the obvious answer of food waste reduction?
There are quite a lot with this, Hillary, and we have developed a series of modules or series of applications that work with our core ERP, but also works with other ERP solutions as well that help with sustainability. And as I kind of go through what I call a chronology of those, if I first start with product development. So developing your products, developing your recipes, developing your packaging. Our application is product lifecycle management, or PLM system, or recipe management system. So first of all, if you can design your products to be more efficient in the ingredients that you use with the products, you're designing your products that can work with your equipment that you have to get better yields from your processes with this, and also design your packaging. To me, that's kind of the first step that we have along the way with this. Then I look at having the workplace basically ready, and part of this is talking about enterprise asset management, making sure that we have equipment that is going to be reliable and it's going to be available for when we need to produce the product. So equipment that does not cause errors, so that we don't have batching errors or we have other errors that cause us to waste or scrap product with this. Looking at OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, so that not only we're producing product at a proper efficiency, but we're tracking our waste, we're tracking our giveaway. Depending upon what industry you're in, that giveaway can account for a lot. We had a company that we were working with that had a cooking operation of protein, a smokehouse operation. And what we found out in working with them, they were actually overcooking the product. Again, you want to cook the product at least to a certain temperature, but as you're cooking protein, there is a shrink factor with this. And when we worked with them to start learning this and monitoring this, they actually saved over $1 million per year in product that they were shrinking just through the cooking of it. Also, if you're filling product, if you're overfilling by 2%, just to make sure you're that minimum standard, if we can tighten that up and go to 1%, there's a big improvement that we have along with that. So I think some of those things are maybe not quite as obvious when we start talking about how we can reduce the waste. Consumer waste is half of what's happening with this. And one of the ways to help reduce consumer waste, in addition to education of consumers, is having products that have a longer shelf life with this. I know a number of companies have gone to high pressure pasteurization, HPP, that increases the shelf life of the products with this. So those are kind of things we can do that help with the consumers in terms of reducing the waste.
All right, thanks, Jack. Next question here. How long does it take to see the benefits of investing in an ERP?
To me, this is kind of like a digital transformation progress. Most ERP systems today are typically implemented in a phased approach. I haven't seen too many companies that have done the big bang approach where they'll work, 6, 9, 12, 18, 24 months, and then they turn the switch and they flip the switch and it starts coming on. But there's typically improvements that start happening pretty much immediately with this. But one of the things I learned many, many years ago, very early in my career, when I was involved in a fairly significant ERP implementation for a fairly large company, where we'd work through for 12 months, we'd turn it on, and I said, okay, project is done. And I had the good fortune of working with a group of consultants who understood that was just the foundation. That once we had the ERP in place, learning how to use it better and having improvements on that, actually is where you start reaping the benefits. So I think you reap the benefits as you go through the process, as you implement. But I think too many companies think, okay, now our project is done, let's do something else. But if you think about this as a continuous improvement project, you can reap even better benefits of continuing to focus on that. I think this is what cloud ERP brings to us, is companies continue to focus on their business, how they can use their business. And I think this is why cloud ERP, companies using cloud ERP are seeing better performance.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Another one for you here. How much of digital transformation includes equipment transformation?
It's going to depend on each company. So, when I talk about the foundation of digital transformation is having the pieces in place. I touched a little bit on it earlier. We're having a proper business system, typically it's your ERP system, having that in place to be able to accept the data, collecting the information with this. So the most obvious, and most of you are probably doing this day, is using barcode scanning. But now, in addition to barcode scanning, if we start talking about digital transformation, is recording through sensors, through scales, through other digital devices that we can record the information with this. But I think when we start talking about digital transformation, there's a lot of automation that can occur with this, so that we have robotics, that we move from Industry 4.0 to we move to Industry 5.0, which has been termed of humans and robots, or humans and machines, working hand in hand. So I think, a big component of digital transformation is also looking at the equipment side and knowing how we can utilize equipment along with technology. Also, I think it helps us in place of the worker shortage. I know many years ago when robotics was first being talked about in the industry, there were concerns by people in terms of this is going to displace employees. But I think what we've learned now is that's not going to be the case. We are having our labor shortages addressed, but what we've also found out by having the proper technology in place, the proper automation, helps companies to be stronger and helps companies grow, which actually ensures jobs for workers.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Next question here is, do you personally see pandemic proofing in the supply chain where factories are increasing their ingredient needs to carry them through future disruptions? And if yes, how long of a time frame are they trying to cover?
I haven't really talked to companies that have done that, but I've actually talked to companies that they used a just in case mentality prior to the pandemic. Where I've been with some companies that said, we were fortunate in that we had overbought, or because we didn't have the proper supply chain planning tools, we had more inventory than we really needed, and it came into play when we needed it. But I think the better approach or the better answer is, don't try to stockpile this. Let's don't guess that there's going to be a pandemic, but let's have better tools, better agility to our supply chain. Let's use forecasting tools to be able to look at what's happening in the global and look at what's happening in the world so that we can be agile with our supply chains with this. The opposite of this is if you were to stockpile ingredients, and what's going to happen if you don't use those ingredients? That's going to be extra cost. That's going to be waste to you. Also, if everybody did this, it's going to cause a shortage in the supply chain. And we know what happens when there's a shortage in the supply chain in terms of consumers and cost and prices. So I would not recommend to do this.
All right, thanks for the insight, Jack. This is more of an observation that I'd be interested to hear you speak on, Jack. So David said, I was surprised to see the survey results on ROI for cloud. Cybersecurity and disaster recovery costs were a tremendous part of IT budgets not too long ago. Is this question too IT centric for the survey respondents, or do you have any other comments on that?
Yeah, so one of the things I didn't share in terms of the demographics of the respondents was what area of the business they come from. And if you download the report, you'll see that about 50% of the respondents were from the business side of the business, and about 50% was from IT with the business. Now, when we look at terms of what areas of the business benefited, when we look at the financial performance, that's typically going to come from the business side or the C-level respondents to this. Typically not going to come from the IT department. And cloud-based ERP solutions, while there is a component to it, a lot of people are doing this for business continuity, to protect themselves against disasters, protect themselves against cyber attacks. There are other benefits that go along with it. And just like we've seen today is business benefits that go along with the cloud IT or the cloud ERP.
Okay, thank you. Next question here is labor shortages are already a challenge for us, so I don't think that we have the manpower to go through an implementation. So how big of an implementation team would my company need?
So not knowing the size of your company, that's a question. So, a couple recommendations. First of all, is if you're looking at selecting a new technology, whether it's ERP or you're looking at something else, make sure that you select a system that meets your business requirements, meets your business needs. All too often, if somebody selects a generic ERP solution, that's going to take longer to implement. It's going to take possibly some customization, possibly some workarounds to be able to utilize that. So make sure that you are selecting a system that meets your business needs. One also that is, I'm going to say, right-sized for your business. One that you're not going to outgrow in 2 years, or one that fits your business. Where you're at today, but where you're going to be, or where you want to be in the next 5 to 7 years as well. So that's going to help out with that. The next piece is having that core implementation team, from the business that basically represents all those key components of the business. Someone from finance and accounting, someone from sales and customer service, someone from operations, supply chain. So typically you're going to need at least those 4 key, subject matter experts that need to understand the business. They're going to actually know the business better once they go through this. Now, the other part of it is, as you select those individuals, those are probably the individuals that are the key people in your business. So you need to figure out how you can, quote, backfill them as they're doing this process. And I've seen some interesting approaches with that. I've seen where companies have brought in other people to help backfill. A lot of food and beverage companies are family-based businesses. So they brought in extended family members. I've known one of the owners brought his wife in to run customer service during this process from this. So I think the way is to be creative. And then one last example I saw was a company that they changed their workforce to 4 10-hour days instead of 8 5-hour days. But what they had was the 4 10-hour days for the office and then a half a day on the 5th day. And they changed it to the 5th day was really a full day for the implementation of their technology project. So again, a lot of creative ways to be able to do this. And part of it is, looking downstream down the road is to be able to retain people. You want to have a place that people, are happy, they're satisfied. And if you have the proper technology systems that supplement what they do, make it easy for them to do things instead of making it difficult for them, this is something that people are going to be happier to come to work and have a better chance of retaining employees.
Okay, thank you so much, Jack. We are running up on time. So any questions that have gone unanswered, we will address via email. But I just want to thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today, and especially you, Jack. Thank you so much for joining us again and for the excellent presentation. Everyone, keep an eye on your inbox for the recording of the event, the slide deck, and a couple of more goodies from the team at Aptean. Have a great rest of your day.